Right. So we'll continue with programming. Right. So far we have finished. We have finished the object-oriented programming. Other than the nested and inner classes, which we will be discussing later. Right. So any questions on what we have done so far? Because now the critical part is over. Now we have the other topics to complete.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, the interface multiple class type වලට inherit කරන්න පුළුවන්ද?
Interface inherit කරනවා කියලා කියන්නේ implement කරනවා කියලා කියන්නේ ඒක inherit වගේ තමයි. Right. So if you take say this is my I1, say this is my A, this is my B, say this is C is extended from something else, X, say A and B are extended from, say A is extended from this, B is also extended from this. Now A to පුළුවන් make interface එක A to පුළුවන් I1 implement කරන්න, B to පුළුවන් ඕනනම් මේ අපි හිතමු C කියලා, C to නම් පුළුවන්. එහෙම කිසි ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. හරි. So එකෙන් කියන්නේ මේ A ටත් I1 කෙනෙක් විදිහට හැසිරෙන්න පුළුවන්, B ටත් I1 කෙනෙක් විදිහට හැසිරෙන්න පුළුවන්. C also can act as I1. So that's it. So that means basically in a way multiple inheritance, but it is not inheritance, it is polymorphism. Because interface you don't have anything implemented. You don't have anything implemented. It's an agreement, right? It's an agreement. The implementation has to be done by the individual classes, but they are coming to the agreement that okay, I am going to implement this, so therefore I can play the role of this particular interface. And also if you have another interface, say I2, of course they can all implement that one, or some of these guys can implement that one. So for example, A is, say this is my D, A is a D, A is I1, A is I2, B is a D, B is I1, C is a X as an inheritance, but at the same time C is I1, C is I2, because C implements I1, C implements I2. Okay, so that is how it goes. හරිද? තේරුණාද? තේරුණාකොට මෙහෙමයි, තාම කතන්දරේ හරියට තේරෙන්නේ නැතුව ඇති. මේ වෙලාවේ තේරුම් ගන්න ඕන concept එක විතරයි. practical දේවල් කතා කරනවා thread programming කරනකොට සහ UI development කරනකොට practically. හරි, but so what we are saying is A can act as a can act as a D, A can act as a I1, A can act as a I2. Now when A is needed, I can set a object. Right, when a method has a say some method is there, say it is expecting a, so I can send a object. It is expecting a D, some other method, I can send a object. It is expecting a I1, so that is a very important one. And the interface එකක් parameter එකක් විතර තියෙන පුළුවන් method එක. ඔක තමයි වැදගත්. හරි. මේ interface එකක් තියෙන පුළුවන් parameter එකක් විදියට. එතකොට අපිට පුළුවන් මොකද I1 කියලා interface වල object හදන්න බෑනේ. අපිට කවි වෙලාවකත් interface එක object හදන්න බෑ. I1 say I equal new I1 කියලා. නෑ, එහෙම කතන්දරයක් නෑ. interface වලින් object හදන්න බෑ. interface එක හරියට abstract class එකක් වේ. 100% abstract class එකක් වගේ නේද? abstract class වුණත් object හදන්න බෑ. so ඒක තියෙන තනිකර මෙයා ඉන්නේ inheritance වලට සහ polymorphism කියන දෙකටම. මෙයා ඉන්නේ polymorphism කියන concept එක තමයි. polymorphism කියන්නේ ඔයා contract එකක් ගහලා දෙනවා. හරි, මේක හරි වැදගත්. contract එකක් ගහලා දෙනවා. දැන් උදාහරණයක් විදියට දැන් ඕගොල්ලෝ ඇයි මේ BIT course එකට ඉගෙන ගන්නේ? හරි, දැන් සමහර එහෙම idea එකක් ඇතිනේ නේද? ඇයි ඕගොල්ලෝ මේ degree ගන්නෙ? එතකොට ඒක contract එකක්. හරි. ඒතර සමාජයේ කොළඹ විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයේ කොළඹ යුනිවර්සිටියේ පිළිගැනීමක් තියෙනවා. නේද? මේ contract එක තමයි සමාජය සහ නැත්නම් ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රි එක සහ සමාජය අතර තියෙන්නේ. නැත්නම් මේ විශ්වවිද්‍යාලයකට පිළිගැනීමක් තියෙනවා කියන එක මත තමයි ඔයගොල්ලෝ මේ BIT ඩිග්‍රී එක කරන්නේ එක්තරා විදිහකට. හැබැයි ඒකෙන් කියන්නේ ඔයාලට මේ BIT ඩිග්‍රී ගත්ත පරිදි ඔයා වැඩ කරනවාමයි කියලා. හරි. නමුත් අර ඔයාලට ඉන්ටර්විව් එකක් හරි ගන්න පුළුවන් කියන්නේ ඒක තමයි. ඒ මේ ඉන්ටර්ෆේස් එක ඔයා ඉම්ප්ලිමන්ට් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඔයා මේ BIT ඩිග්‍රී කියන ඒගොල්ලන් පබ්ලිෂ් කරලා තියෙනනේ සිලබස් එක නම් නේද? සිලබස් පබ්ලිෂ් කරලා තියෙනවා. ඉන්ඩස්ට්‍රි එකේ අය දන්නවා ඒවයි කන්ටෙන්ට්ස් මොනවද කියලා. සෝ එතකොට දැන් ඔයා මේක ඩිග්‍රිය ගත්තා කියන්නේ අර ඔයාට ඉන්ටර්විව් හම්බ වෙනවා බොහෝ විට. ඉන්ටර්විව් එකක් එන්න තියෙන chance එක වැඩි. ඇයි ඒ? ඔයා ඒගොල්ලෝ දන්නවා ඔයා මේ සිලබස් ස්ටඩි කරලා තියෙනවා ඒ එක්සෑම්ස් පාස් වෙලා තියෙනවා කියලා නේද? හැබැයි මෙතන තියෙන්නේ ඒගොල්ලෝ දන්නේ නැහැ මේක කොහොමද ඉම්ප්ලිමන්ට් කරලා තියෙන්නේ ඒවා දන්නේ නැහැ. නමුත් ඔයාගේ කොන්ට්‍රැක්ට් එක සයින් කරලා තියෙන කෙනෙක් කියලා දන්නවා නේද? ඒ කියන්නේ එක්සෑම් ලියලා ඔක්කොම කරලා සර්ටිෆිකේට් එක හම්බුනාට නේද? something like that. okay? හැබැයි ඔයා කොච්චර දේවල් දැනන් හිටියද? ඒකත් හරි නේද? අපි හිතමු ඔයා ඉතා දක්ෂයි software development වලට. හරි ඔයා ඉතා දක්ෂයි software development වල ඔයා database පැත්ත network පැත්ත හොඳට දන්නවා තනිය ඉගෙනගෙන. නමුත් කොච්චර ඔයා දැනගෙන හිටියද? සමහර වෙලාවට ඔයා job එකකට apply කරාම ඔයාට interview වෙන්න කියන්නේ නැහැ. දැන් උදාහරණ ඒක තමයි reality එක නේද? interview වෙන්න කියන්නේ නැහැ. මොකද ඔයාට ඩිග්‍රියක් නැහැ නේද කියලා නේද? ඔයාට ඩිග්‍රියක් නැහැ reputed university එකේ ඩිග්‍රියක් නැහැ කියලා. අන්න ඒක තමයි මේ කියන්නේ. ඒතකොට ඔයාලට පුළුවන් මේ I1 implement නොකර I1 implement කරනවා කියලා ලියන්න නැතුව මේකේ තියෙන methods එක implement කරන්න පුළුවන්. හරි methods එක implement කරලා තියෙන. හැබැයි ඔයා කියලා නැහැ මම implement කරලා තියෙන I1 කියලා. නැත්නම් I2 කියලා. එතකොට අර I2 expect කරන තැනකට ඔයාගේ ඒ object එක යවා ගන්න බෑ. මේක තාම රසවත් කතන්දරයක්. හරි. ඒකනේ දැන් අරවයි කියනවා job advertisement එක කියන්නේ කොහමද? You must have a computer science or information technology degree. ඒ කියන්නේ computer science කියන interface එක implement කරපු අයටයි information technology කියන interface එක implement කරපු අයට අර ඒ interview කියන method එකට එන්න පුළුවන් apply කරන්න පුළුවන්. හරි. ඒගොල්ලෝ කියන අනිත් ඒවා පිටචර consider කරන්නේ නැහැ. නේද? ඒක තමයි නැත්නම් ඔයාලට ඒ දැනුම තිබිච්ච පළියට මොකද ඒගොල්ලෝ ඉල්ලන්නේ ඩිග්‍රියක් IT පැත්තේ computer science පැත්තේ. ඒ දැනුම තිබිච්ච පළියට හරියන්නේ නැහැ. ඒක තමයි qualification එකක් කියන්නේ. මේ contract එක තමයි මේ පෙන්නන්නේ. නැත්නම් ඔයගොල්ලෝ හිතන්න බලන්න මේ මොන විකාරයක්ද අරක එක්ස්ටෙන්ඩ් කරනවා. හරි එක්ස්ටෙන්ඩ් කරන එක නම් ඔයාලට හිතන්න එච්චර විකාරයක් නෙමෙයි. මේකට මොන හරි attributes behaviors එනවා කියලා නේද? දැන් මේක එහෙම එන්නේ නැහැ. මේක මුකුත් එන්නේ නැහැ. මුකුත් ඉන්හෙරිට් වෙන්නේ නැහැ. හරි මේ method signatures ටික අපි implement කරනවා කියලා පිළිගත් එක්ක කරේ. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි මේ විභාගයේ exams ලියලා පාස් වුණා කියලා අර ඔයා කියනවා වගේ. එතකොට ඔයාට ඒ පිළිගැනීම හම්බ වෙනවා. ඔයාට interview එකම call කරනවා බොහෝ විට. මොකද ඔයා අර degree එක කරලා තියෙන්නේ. right? So that is how you have to understand interface. හරි interface කියන එක තේරුම් ගන්න ඕන අන්න එහෙම agreement එකක් කියලා. හරි? right. So any other questions? Okay. So any other questions? So I'm explaining the general things in English, but if someone asks question in Sinhala, usually sometimes I explain in Sinhala also because that is his question, right? That is not general theory. So any other questions, Vinay?
Sir.
Yes.
Can you explain that interface again, sir?
So which one, which thing you don't want to understand?
Yeah, last class, sir, you explained about the I2 and I3 and I1, but
okay.
We don't do that one in the practical, you know, sir. If you do that one, we can understand that one.
So practically, I gave you example, right? So practically, I took PET as the interface, right? So we took PET as the interface. So when the PET is needed, we managed to send our dog because dog has implemented this. Okay, I will show it again. Just give me 1 minute. I just want to check whether this code is copied. Batch 3. Okay, now here you can see that I have the dog class, right? I have the dog class. So the dog class extends animal and implements pet. You can see because we can only implement, we can extend only one class. So then we can implement any number of interfaces, right? Any number of interfaces from anywhere. Right? from any class, any interface, right? It is not as long as it makes sense. Okay, as long as it makes sense. Now you can see that according to polymorphism, I can say that my dog is a dog, my dog is an animal, my dog is a pet. And of course, if animal class is inherited from another class, then my dog is that type also. But in this case, of course, animal is the super class. So super class. So therefore, when a dog is expected, I can send a dog. When animal is expected, I can send a dog. And when a pet is expected, also I can send a dog. So that is why we managed to, when you go to the vet test, right? So when this, now look at the Monday clinic is expecting a dog, and I can send my dog object, right? So it says we are expecting dog as a parameter. Yes, so I have a dog object, I can send it. For the Tuesday clinic, it is expecting a cat. So I can set my cat, but I can't set my dog because dog is not a cat. Now I can see it is red. It's not compiled. It is not compiled. So that you don't have that in your class hierarchy, because cat is one side, dog is other side. When cat is needed, my dog can play the role of dog or animal or pet. Okay. Then of course, for the Sunday clinic, which is expecting animal, of course I can send my dog or cat. Why? Dog is an animal, cat is animal. Okay, but not only that, I can even send my lion, which we created later, without changing that vet class. So that is called open close principle, right? So you don't have to wait. Sorry.
Sir, then අපිට doggy කියන එකට animal ලෙවන්න බෑ.
Animal ලෙවන්න පුළුවන්. Animal class එක abstract class එකක් නෙමෙයි නම් පුළුවන්. So let's see whether it's an abstract class or not. Now this is abstract class, therefore we can't create objects of animal. Of course, if it is animal, it is not abstract class. Yes, පුළුවන්. පුළුවන්. හැබැයි එතකොට කාට හරි යන්න පුළුවන් animal කෙනෙක් යවන එකේ dog කෙනෙක් යවන එකේ වෙනස මොකක්ද කියලා. right? එතකොට animal කෙනෙක් යවනවා කියන්නේ animal කෙනෙක් යවනවා. dog කෙනෙක් යවනවා කියන්නේ dog ට features වැඩි. හරි. එතකොට ඒක තමයි අනිත් පැත්තෙන් example එකක් කරේ account class එක savings account class එක කියලා. right? So when account is expected, I can set a savings account. I can set a current account. Right? But if you have written the code to the savings account, in the future, if you inherit from account and create another class, that method you can't send your new account object. So then you have to go there and change that code. So that is violating the open close principle, right? So it's something like you buy your laptop, but later you decide I want to use it with say something like a projector. Now when you take your projector home, you don't change your computer, you just plug in, because they have interface HDMI. As long as the output can process HDMI signal, we don't care. And projector says, right? So when you buy your projector, what you ask is, does it support HDMI output? That's it. If it supports HDMI output, that means the projector implements HDMI output, right? So in programming sense, so yes, they say yes, projector supports HDMI. Then I don't mind. I don't have to come and change my laptop. I can just plug in and the project must work, right? So that is the idea, open close principle. But that was not the case when it comes to some other devices, right? You can't just plug and play, right? So this plug and play is all about working with through well-defined interfaces. So your software, hardware, or whatever, it must work through well-defined interfaces. So then you don't have to do much changes. Okay, so this is how the software developers develop reusable, maintainable software. Okay. So So that is why people, the different software developers, companies has developed different frameworks, right? So there are so many frameworks: Strut framework in Java, Spring framework is there in Java. When it comes to PHP, right, you will be learning some frameworks in PHP in semester 3. There's a framework called Cake PHP. There's a framework called Laravel. So those frameworks are already written. Now you are developing software, but when you do coding, you are you are just creating your classes, implementing those interfaces and or extending those classes, and you are sending your object to the framework, and framework accept it. You don't have to go and change the framework, right? So framework accept your object because you extend their class. They are expecting A. You extend A and you create your B and you are sending B. So that is the beauty of use of frameworks, right? You extend their class in your side and you call their method because you need that functionality, and your object is accepted. Just like you plug your projector. In the future, assume it is not a projector, it is some other technology. As long as they support HDMI, you can just plug it. Right? You can just plug it without you change your computer, right? Because it must be able to process, but it has to implement the processing of HDMI output. That's it. The HDMI output has a standard, right? So that standard we have to define. So that is why we have these interfaces I1, I2, I3, etc. So in the UI development, you will see that we have to implement sometimes the runnable, sometimes we have to implement action listener. So those are the interfaces that Java has defined, and if you want to get that functionalities, we have to implement it. So the implementation we have to do, but we have to implement it in a very standard manner. It's just like rather than you study your own different subject randomly, right? So you have a contract, you have to do that because that is the because the industry has a sort of acceptance about that standard. So otherwise they don't know how well you are, because within half an hour, of course we can evaluate you, but there are limitations, right? So that is why people are doing this course, that course, other course, right? So those are all interfaces, those are all agreements, contracts that, okay, I'm going to pass this particular degree, I'm going to pass this particular something like SEMA, something like that. Okay, right? So you have to think about it seriously, very seriously, because you have to look at the society. How now the society also like that. In the society also we have the protocols. Now in your semester 4 we will be discussing network. There we discuss a concept called protocol. IP protocol, TCP protocol, HTTP protocol. So that is again, that is not really in the software, but in the data communication, again, contracts. So I agree that, okay, I will be talk to you in HTTP. Can you listen to me? Okay, so we agree. Then we communicate, right? We communicate. Okay, so that is how engineering is done. So you have to come into this engineering mindset. Okay, so how the engineers think, how the engineers design things, how the engineers make complicated tasks easy, right? Through these engineering concepts. Okay, right. Anyway, we will be revisiting this topic again when we are doing some other topics in the future. Okay, it's not all the topics, especially thread programming and UI development. We are going to use these concepts in a very detailed level. Okay, so but there we are going to use it, right? We are not going to learn those concepts again, right? So this is the agreement. This is the agreement, right? So very good example is you are following BIT. Say you are following Colombo BIT, you are following Morato BIT, or you are following Open University Software Engineering. and maybe there's a job posting says we need graduates from Columbia University. We need graduate from the so that agreement now you have say, okay, I have implemented this. So therefore you are accepted. Maybe after the interview, right? So that degree course is the interface. Okay, degree course is the interface, and you are the one who are implementing that interface. And of course, in this case, it's going to be evaluated by the university and check whether you have properly implemented it. And then you are a potential candidate for when someone is looking for IT graduate from Columbia University. Okay, IT graduate from Orphan University. So this is how the things are happening in the society as well. Okay, because we need set of standards, right? We need set of standards, right? Okay, now we are moving to our next topic then. Okay, so any more questions, because this is the most important subject, the topic, because in semester 3 you have the object oriented analysis and design. Right. Again, it's based on this one. We are going to the next level and discuss how to design software using these concepts. Yes. Any question?
Finalize method කියලා එකක් තිබ්බා මේ basic object oriented programming වල ඒක පොඩ්ඩක් කරේ නෑ.
Oh, finalize කරේ නෑ. පොඩ්ඩයි. Finalize කරේ නැද්ද? Finalize නේ final method. හරි?
Final method කරා finalize කියලා එකක් තිබ්බා මේ OOP basic එකේ basic note එකේ.
Finalize
memory deallocation කියලා එකක්. memory deallocation.
ඒක use කරන්නේ නැහැ වැඩි. ඒක මම කරේ නැත්තේ. හරි. මම ඒක explain කරන්න. right. ඒක වැඩි කවුරු code කරන්නේ නැති හන්ද මම කරේ නැත්තේ. හරි. හරි. මම ඒක කරන්න explain කරන්න. final class या final method එකක් කියන්නේ මොකද්ද කියලා කරානේ අපි?
ඔව් ඒක කරා ඒක. ඔව්.
මොකද final class එකක් කියන්නේ?
subclass.
Yeah, the class that you can't subclass. Final method means a method that you can't override. Yes, and of course a class cannot be both final and abstract, because then it is useless, because there are only two usages of class: to create objects or for inheritance, right? Or to inheritance. Okay, right. So yeah, finalize method. Okay, we'll talk about that. And I will explain you the garbage collection as well, because I didn't explain that part also. Right, garbage collection. Okay, right. So now we remember we discussed about the constructors where we create objects. Okay, so objects have a life cycle, right? Object has a life cycle. We create objects. For example, if you have something like, say, account, say A equal new account. Assume that account is not abstract class. New account. So that is, you create object. You create object of that particular class. Okay. So using the new keyword, you can create objects. So now what you can do with this object? What are the things that you can do with this object now? Now, what is mean by creating object? Can someone explain me? I don't need a perfect answer. What is happening inside the computer when an object is created? If you can explain that reasonable manner, I'm really happy. That means you have understood it. Anyone want to give it a try?
Instance variable වලටයි static variable වලටයි memory allocation කරනවා වෙනම.
එච්චරයි වෙන්නේ. static නම් ආයෙ allocate කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. සමහරවිට allocate කරන්න දෙයක් නැහැ. අයියේ. Sometimes it has to allocate always it has to allocate memory for the instance variable. But for static variables, sometimes it has to allocate, sometimes it doesn't have to allocate. Can you explain that part? Why I am using the word sometimes? Because yes,
සමහර වෙලාවට කියන්නේ සමහර කියන්නේ මෙමරි එක ෂෙයා කරගන්න පුළුවන් මෙමරි ලොකේෂන් එකේ. ඒතකොට පළවෙනි ඔබ්ජෙක්ට් එක හදනකොට
අන්න හරි පළවෙනි කියන වචනේ කිව්වට පස්සේ මට අවුලක් නැහැ. Right. So if it is the first object of that class, then memory is allocated for the static variables as well. But if it is a subsequent object, maybe already you have created a count object, then you are allocating memory for only for the instance variable, because every instance must have separate memory, because every instance variable are going to have their own values, right? So therefore, yes, if it is the first object of that class, then for static variable also it is going to allocate memory, but subsequently static variables are not going to take memory because those are shared among all the objects. Yes, so that is what happens when an object is created. That's it. Say you have the account number and balance, so 2 memory locations are allocated. Say you are creating another account object, again 2 memory locations are allocated, and of course at the very first time, if there are static variables like interest rate, for that one also separately memory is allocated. Okay, so remember we discussed about the global area and the heap. It is in the heap these objects are created, heap area of the memory. In the remember we discussed that about in the computer system subject, how the memory segmentation, right? So that is what happens when an object is created. So this is how you create object. So every time you create object, memory is allocated to its instance variables, and for the first object, yes, memory is allocated for the static variables as well. So there's nothing to do with the instance methods and class methods. So instance method and static method. So because methods don't need memory, methods need processing power. Of course, methods also need bit of memory. Can you explain why I am saying methods also need memory? If you can explain, yes,
local
sorry?
variables, local
yes,
variables.
exactly. Yes, exactly. So that is the answer, right? So when you execute a method, if there are local variables, then you have to allocate memory for those local variables, because until the method is returned, that has to be in the memory. But the moment the method is return, that memory is again deallocated, right? Deallocated. So it's no longer needed. But when we say methods are called, it's pretty much the processing that is happening, other than small local variables are created here and there. Okay, so those local variables are created in the stack area of the memory, because it's a methods calling is a sort of method stack. Okay, right. So once you create it, now the object is in the memory. That means the memory is allocated in the in your RAM. Then you call your own behaviors, or maybe some other class has created object of you and it's called, maybe you are calling your own behavior, so you are creating object of another class and you are calling that, then that object is also created. Then when the method is returned, maybe that is calling creating another object and calling a behavior. So that is how these methods calls are happening, and those are the things that we are going to learn in your semester 3 under object-oriented analysis and design. Now, there are some students in the semester 3 class, they haven't understood these concepts in semester 1. So now they are struggling to understand what are those diagrams and stuff like that, because we are modeling what is happening in our software. But if you don't know what happens when object is created, what is mean by object calling a behavior of another method, another object, so then they don't understand what is sequence diagram, what is communication diagram. So they are clueless. Okay, so I'll just show you briefly show you that they are semester 3 note also, because at the end it's built on that semester 2 is built on semester 1. Semester 3 is built on your level 1. Okay. So I'll just show you that also, because this object-oriented analysis and design semester 3. So actually we have completed this topic for semester 3 also, and also past papers are also done. Because I told you that semester 1 it takes a lot of time. Semester 3 classes started, I think, only about 3 months, and this subject is already done, including past paper discussion also. So there are two reasons. One is these students are more matured students, so they have passed their level 1. So that means yes, they have proved that we are good enough. So therefore we are also confident that okay, we can do it faster. And also in any degree program, when you go up the levels, the content is getting lesser. That is normal. So therefore level 1, yes, you have a lot of stuff to learn. Level 2, less stuff. Level 3, very little, but what we have is the spirit, right? So they have filtered students are there. So for example, level 3 we are doing only once a week, right? Just Fridays. So most of the time I will just do 2 hours, right? Just 2 hours. Even 2 hours is not needed, because they can do their own tasks now, right? So they don't rely much on us, right? So I will just show you. For example, it's pretty much you notice that we are going to we start with them doing a quick revision. Okay, you can see system concepts and object modeling. So this is actually, there's nothing new here. We are just doing a quick revision again, because it's after 2 semesters. You can see. So object oriented again. Don't think that in the semester 3 we are going to learn other completely different things, right? Again, message passing, class, right? Message. So same thing that you learn. Actually, there's nothing new at all. So this is the same example you have in your code, your note. So then we build on top of that. We start building what are UML diagrams, because now you are moving to the design inside, right? Design inside. Then we are moving to the say class diagrams. So for example, because you must also start if you're serious, you have to start preparing for that, because this is a journey, this is a marathon, not 100-meter. Right? So then we are going to discuss. Again, you can see the interfaces are there, right? So we are going to look at it in a very serious manner now. What is association, right? What is realization? How to code it? How to code association, right? One-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-many. Because in different type of classes, boundary classes, control classes, right? And then we are going to be there. You will be learning the very important concept called interaction diagram. So that is where we model how the methods objects are going to call behaviors of other objects. So something like this, okay, for a particular scenario. So that is what happening inside your computer, right? Now you can see object is created. It is another object is created. Its behavior is called. Now it is called in the other method. Right? So and the same thing, we have another type of diagram if you want to explain it in differently. So likewise, it's based on the your understanding, right? Interaction overview diagrams, timing diagrams, etc. for different aspects. Okay. So these syllabus are very small, right? Just 20-page note, right? 10-page note, etc. Right. So now that is what happens when object is created. Okay. So once object is created, once object is created, now someone else, because object is created by not by you can't create your own objects, right? So this object is created by another class. Okay, always after starting your program, that is where we can start saying calling the main method. But from that point onward, it's all about one class create object of another class and calling a behavior. That class create object of another class and calling the behavior. That class creating a object of another class and creating the behavior. And they are returning. Then when now now this is what happens, right? For example, after your main method is called, then you are creating object of one class and calling a behavior. Say object one. In order to do its task that it is supposed to do, it can create another object and call a behavior. After this is done, maybe to continue with your task, it has to create another object, different type of object, and get some service. So maybe this guy has to get the service of another object. Right? Now it's returning. Now when it's returned, maybe you have to get a service of another object. So then you are done. So likewise, when a particular scenario is running, maybe in a commercial software, sometimes hundreds of objects are created. Right? Hundreds of objects are created. Say you are doing a money transfer. Right? So assume that you are doing a money transfer in your ATM machine, or maybe online. You log into your online banking session and you are doing a money transfer. So in the server, because all the things are happening in the server, when you submit, say you select the account number of where you want to transfer and the amount, etc., and you say submit. Assume that you have already authenticated, you got all the information on one-time password and everything. Now it's all about these objects are now getting called, right? Objects is created, a method is called. Maybe one is doing validation, the other one is debiting the money, right? Because in your account object, money must be reduced from the other account object. The money has to be added. If it is a money transfer, then there are some validations, security checks. Sometimes you have to send an email, right? SMS to confirm the things. So therefore, all those things are happening in the server. So that means, for example, to send the email or sending SMS, again, there's a SMS or email utility object. So you have to create email object, utility object, and call the maybe send behavior. You have to give that other relevant information like account number, amount, etc. Now it is going to take care of that. And it's going to say, okay, done. So that is how a system is operating, a software is operating when we develop it as object-oriented software. Of course, it is not, it is more complicated than structured programming. In structured programming, just you have a starting point, then there are some statements, loops, etc., and it is calling another method, and it is calling another method. It is also pretty much the same, but only thing is it is not creating objects. No, it is just creating a method. It is creating another method. When it is written, it is creating another method. When it is written, maybe it is returning. Maybe that is creating another method. Now it's methods, not creating objects and calling behaviors. But the concept is pretty much the same. Right? Here, method calls. But here, we are calling the behavior or method of an object. Okay. So then someone will ask again. So when this method call is very simple to understand, because I can understand this is calling this is calling this is calling that, blah, blah, blah. Now, why we have this business of objects? Always create object and call the behavior. You also create object and behavior, call the behavior. Because that is where we can utilize inheritance and polymorphism. Okay. So reusable code, maintainable code. The code that we don't have to change every time there's a new requirement. So that is why we have to make this in a little bit more complicated manner using concept of classes, objects, messages, rather than just calling one method, other method, etc. Of course, calling just method is very simple. Okay. But it is not going to give that reusability, and other features that we get from the object-oriented programming. Okay, any questions?
Sir, I thought structure programming wala static method වලින් ලියන්න ඔක්කොම.
නෑ static method කියලා කතාවක් නෑ. ඔය එක්තරා විදිහකට ඒවා static method තමයි. ඔව්. මොකද නිකන් method එකක් call කරනවා object එකක් නෑනේ. මෙයා මේ method එක ඒවට static ද මුකුත් කියලා කියන්නේ නැහැ. ඒවට කියනවා නිකන් method කියලා. හරි. මොකද ඔයා ලිව්වොත් එහෙම object oriented නොවන subject මේ language එකකින් C වගේ. ඉතින් එතන static ද මුකුත් කියලා නැහැ. එතන method කියලා විතරයි. මේ method එක call කරනවා. මොකද object හදන්නේ නැහැ. හැබැයි object oriented language එකකින් structured විදිහට ලිව්වොත් එහෙම ඔයාලට ඔක්කොම static method තමයි ලියන්නේ. අපි හිතමු Java පාවිච්චි කරලා structured විදිහට program එක ලියනවා කියලා. ඔයා ලියන methods ඔක්කොම මොනවාද? static method. මොකද අනිත් method call කරන්න බෑනේ object එකක් හදන්න නේද? දැන් ඔයාලට තේරෙනව නේද? account කියන class එකේ තියෙන deposit method එක call කරන්න පුළුවන් එකම විදිය තමයි account object එක හදන්න ඕන. ඉතින් එතකොට object oriented. ඔයා කතන්දර 100ක් හරි. එතකොට static method තමයි ලියන්නේ. object oriented language එකක් දිනවා. හැබැයි object oriented නැති language එක static method කියලා කියන්නේ ඒකට කියන්නේ නිකම් method කියලා. හරි? C වගේ language එක. Okay? Right. So now we can create objects. So there are things that can happen at the object creation time, especially the allocation of the memory for the instance variables and sometimes for the static variables. Then of course, your object can call because someone else have called your behavior of your object. That is why you have this object is created. Now, as part of the execution of the functionality or logic, this particular object will have to create object of other classes and call the behavior. It may have to create object of other class and call the behavior, and that is where this message passing is happening. So now traditionally we call it message passing, but there's nothing called message is sent. Basically, you are calling one object is calling a behavior of another object, right? So එකට තමයි අපි sequence diagram එකේ මම model කරන්නේ. So that is what happening during the execution of a particular transaction, a business activity, right? For example, that business activity can be deposit of money to the bank, withdrawal of money, okay? Maybe the calculation, adding interest to each and every account, if it is a bank, or taking a report, okay? If it is a supermarket, it can be release of items from inventory, the stores to the shop area. It can be a preparation of a bill. It can, because supermarkets can do now bill payments also, like electricity bill, etc. It can be that kind of a bill payment, right? Or it can be some sort of a refund, right? So all those things are possible, right? All for each and every, when you do that kind of transactions, so business activities in the server, these objects are created and behaviors are called, etc. Not only that, of course, if you go for web page application, UI is not done in object oriented manner. Right? UI is done in a very simple manner because user interface is not a very complicated thing compared to the business logic. So there you will just do it the normal way. But if you take C# programming, that is the Windows based application, C# based, not the web applications, right? C# or Java Swing, then even UI is also object oriented, right? Even the UI, user interface. Creation of a form is creation, for example, in Java, creation of a form is creation of object. Creation of button in that form is also creation of a object. So in that case, even that kind of small things are also done as object-oriented way. So that is why now you know that usually not every person is going to get the same salary, but usually Java software developers, they are involved in developing Java software, Java-based programs. They get little bit higher salary, not little bit, sometimes very big. At C# programmers, they get fairly big salary because when it comes to developing Java, if it is something like Swing application, etc., even a button is object, right? So therefore, not everyone can understand object-oriented programming. But if you are, I'm not saying that these web developers are getting less salary. If they are really talented, they will also get almost the same salary. But they don't have to do much about object orientation. Because, for example, now we are going to learn PHP in your semester 3. They are predominantly we are coding non-object oriented manner. But the thing is, then you can't do really serious stuff with PHP. Right? All those banking applications, ERP systems, they are not PHP. They are all either ASP.NET, C# or JSP servlet, that is Java. Okay, so because those are that is where the real object-oriented support is. PHP has a very limited object-oriented support. Otherwise, people will be using PHP to develop banking systems, etc. I don't think any banking system is developed using PHP. Right? All those banking systems, right? Sampath Bank or whatever, you ask them. Of course, you have to ask from a technical person. They will say, okay, it is a JSP servlet or Java. It is a ASP.NET. Right? They will never say it's a PHP application. The PHP application is good enough if you want to create a CMS application, content management system, at small application for a education institute. Even applications like Facebook is pretty much written in PHP, but they are not doing now PHP. Now, for example, Facebook is also now getting extremely transaction oriented because there are payments and those things happening. So therefore, they are also now gradually moving it from the backend side. Some of the main functionalities are they have migrated to some other languages. Okay, so that is where the new languages like Python, Google has a language called Go. So these languages are gradually doing the server side tasks because they are better object oriented languages. Okay, right. So now object is created. So that is why we have the concept called constructor. So when object is created, the constructor is called because there are things that we have to do, right? For example, we want to initialize certain values. If you want to do some database interactions, that is the best place to get the database connectivity. So that kind of things we can do. Then, of course, its method will be called by the other class, other object, and some processing happening, and it can create objects of other classes, and it is calling the behaviors to get certain tasks done. So that is happening during its life cycle. Right? So maybe that object is used only for just one particular transaction. So once the transaction is over, not actually once the transaction is over, once your task is over, say you created an object, right? Now your task is over. Now whenever object is created, memory is allocated, right? Remember, because it has to allocate memory for the instance variables, sometimes even static variables. So therefore, once this object is no longer needed, right? No longer needed, we can, or the computer can release that memory to the memory pool, because otherwise we are wasting memory. Now you can see that now also I got a message about 15 minutes early. My computer is running out low resources, right? Because I think now you can see still it's 100%, and also the I'm now more interested about the memory. Now you can see my memory about 70%, 78%, more than 75% of the memory is used. So it's very important. Of course, every time you create objects, you are consuming memory, more and more memory. So therefore, it's very important. Whenever you are done with that, you release that memory to the computer. Now you can see here it says 1.9 gigabyte is available, right? So that means there is a 1.9 gigabytes of memory available to the operating system. It can use it at any time. So why when something is run, after that is done, they release it. So that is why now, for example, if I close this, you will see that there's a reduction in memory. Now it is released because it has to be, right? Now the Firefox has released some of its memory. That means objects have released some of the memory. Okay, of course, I think Firefox is pretty much written in languages like C, C++. Okay, so that means the memory is released. Right, so therefore, that memory release mechanism is also important. Memory release and clean up things. Right, if you have done a database activity, now it's a good time to disconnect from you from database, because otherwise you are unnecessarily consuming their connections. So therefore, there's a concept. Now you remember there's a concept called construction. Construct. Right, construct. So that is where when we say account A equal new account, that is what happens. The constructor is called. Okay, that is where the memory is allocated. Now you are doing certain tasks with that object. You are calling other objects behaviors. You are doing your processing, etc. Right. So that is now the memory. Your instance variables are getting changed and things are happening, and also the processor is called to execute some instructions, etc. Now, after you are done with this object. Now you want to discard. So now you know that if every day you will be bringing certain items, food items, etc. Right, for your survival. Now, if you are in a sort of urban area, almost every day you have some sort of a garbage which you want your urban council or whatever to clean it. Otherwise, you are in trouble now. So same thing. When these objects are no longer needed, when its task is done, we have to do something called garbage collection. Right. So in some languages, we have to specifically release that memory or do that throwing up of throw of those objects. But in Java, you don't have to do that. Right? In Java, you don't have to do that because there's a concept called automatic garbage collection. So this question has been asked in your paper as well. Okay, there's a concept called automatic garbage collection. So therefore, you don't have to release or destruct your objects. Now remember, construct, use, destruct. Destruct means you demolish, right? කඩලා විතර දානවා. විනාශ කරලා දානවා. ඕනේ නැහැ දැන්. memory එක දෙනවා අරගෙන ආගේ memory එක. So in some languages, all languages, we have to do that also. But in Java, there's a concept called automatic garbage collection, where if an object is no longer used, that memory will be released to the main memory area or the heap area. Okay, so that is happening periodically by your JVM or the JDK, right? Maybe every 1 minute. It depends on your JDK implementation. It will look for the unused object and it is going to garbage collecting, right? So usually what you are supposed to do in that garbage collection is simply you have to release the memory of the instance variable, because that instance variables are for the individual values. Now that individual value is no longer needed for us, because that object is now we are done with that objects. So those will be that memory will be again taken back to the main memory or the heap. So that is what happens in the garbage collection. So by default, it is going to just clean up the memory only. But if you want to do special tasks at this garbage collection time, now remember, if you want to do special tasks at the object creation time, we have the constructor. So similarly, if you want to do something at this disposal time, there's a method called finalize in Java. Right? There's a method called finalize in Java. So that is the question you asked. Where's my PDF? Okay, I have closed the PDF also. Just give me 1 minute. So there's a method called finalize, where if you want to do some special things at the garbage collection time, you can code it. You can call it. But the thing is, you never call. Now you just write this method, but you never call this method. So that is strange thing, right? So even a constructor, you call it, right? Because you now say account class has a constructor call. Class account, you have a constructor called account, and you have the code. Now when you create account object, say account A1 equal new account. So you are basically calling this constructor. So therefore still you are calling it. But this finalize method, we don't call it. But if you want, you can write that code in your class. Every class has that finalize, can have that finalize method. Any class. So then someone will ask, why do you want to do that? At the garbage collection time, which is not done by you, which is not under your control, it is under the control of your Java virtual machine. If you have coded anything in the finalize method, it will be called. It will be called. Okay. But only thing is, I can't show you that this method is called, because it is called by the JDK, not by our program. So therefore, you don't have to worry. Whatever you have written will be executed. But usually you don't have to do much here. Maybe if you have taken a database connection for that object, if it is a persistence object, then maybe you can release it here, right? You can release it here, because this is going to happen. But again, the bad news is we never know when this is happening, but we are very sure that it is going to happen time to time. But there is no guarantee that this is going to happen this time or that time. Okay, because this is not something we call. This is something your JDK call when it is doing the cleanup periodically. Okay, so therefore, anyway, if you want to do some cleanup activities, if you can do it here. Okay, or else at the end of your method, say you are doing some transaction, maybe at the end of your method you can do that cleanup task in that method itself. Okay, right. So that is sorry, yeah.
So once we did the project, sir, so do we need to add this this one, that garbage cleaning up method? Do we need to add in our project?
No, usually when you are doing small programs, or when you are doing your final year project, you never have to touch this finalize method or think about the garbage collection, because it will happen, right? It will happen. So I forgot to mention when this garbage collection is happening also. Now, for example, now say this object has create an instance of this object and call that method, call a behavior. Now assume that this object has call a behavior then to get its work done. Now it has returned. Now it has returned. Now once it returns, now if no object is referring to this one, those kind of objects are called orphan objects, because no one is now caring about you now. So those objects are the one that will be marked for garbage collector. So garbage collector will mark those things as no longer referenced by anyone, and it is going to clean up those. But say this guy is still referred by this one because it has not returned the method. So therefore garbage collector is not going to garbage collect this method, this particular object. Okay. So if no one is referring to a particular object, if other objects are not referring to your object, then you are a candidate for garbage collection, because no one is caring about you now. So that is what happens. Okay. But at that time, the garbage collector is cleaning up. If you have written finalize any code in finalize method, that will be also called, and then you will be clean up from the memory. But usually you don't have to do much, or sometimes you don't have to worry at all about finalize method. Okay. So in your project, final year project, usually you don't have to do this code this finalize method unless it is something to do with the database connectivity. Yes, if it is database connectivity, this is the best place to release your database connections back to the database. Okay. So other places you will never touch the method called finalize, and again you are not calling the finalize method. Finalize method will be called by your JDK. Okay, right. Okay, so we'll take a small break. So after the break, now we are moving to our today's topic, that is packages and access modifiers. Okay, packages. Now this has nothing to do with object-oriented programming. Okay, this is a complete new task because I want to do this before moving to the UI development. So that is the reason. Okay, right. So now it's 9:05. Let's start at 9:20. So if you have any other questions, please raise those questions and clarify those things. Don't keep any questions with you. Okay. My task is to explain all the questions. I don't want to start the next topic. I am not at all hurry, especially object orientation. Yes. Any question?
සර් ඒතකොට දැන් ඔය අපිට සර්වර් මැෂින් එක වගේ නේද ඔය මේ ගාර ඩිලීට් එක ඕනේ ඉන්නේ සාමාන්‍ය අපේ ඒ වෙන ගොඩක් කරලා ඔබ්ජෙක්ට් හැදී හැදී තියෙනව නේද දිගට
සර්වර් මැෂින් එකට වැඩියෙන් වැදගත් වෙන්නේ. මොකද සර්වර් එකට හිට්ස් වැඩි. වෙබ් සර්වර් එකක් නම් අපි නිකමට හිතමුකෝ බැංකුවක් කියලා බැංකුවේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ හිතා ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙබ් සර්වර් එකට හිට් කීයක් එකපාර වදිනවද කියලා. හැම ATM මැෂින් එකෙන් වෙන ට්‍රාන්සැක්ෂන් එක සර්වර් එක හැන්ඩල් කරන්න ඕනේ. එතන ඒකේ වටිනාකම වැදගත්කම වැඩි. ක්ලයන්ට් මැෂින් එක ඒක එච්චර ලොකුවට බලපාන්නේ නැහැ. මොකද ඒකේ රන් වෙන්නේ අර UI එක විතරයි බෝ විට. ඒ කතාව හරි. සර්වර් එකට ගියාට පස්සේ මේකේ වැදගත්කම ඉතා වැඩි. Okay, right. So we'll start at 9:20.
Sir.
Yes.
The thing is, in the constructor, in the
yes.
also we find that without the constructor also we can do programming. So is it possible to do that in the final year project also?
So it depends on the because when you say final year project, 100 people do 100 projects. Okay. So therefore, okay. I can't say whether it's possible or not because it depends on the project you are doing. But in general, if you go for object-oriented approach, right? Because there are different technologies also, right? Some students go for PHP, and they are not using much object orientation. So then, of course, it's out of the discussion because they are not using object-oriented much. But if you go for object orientation, there's a high chance, right? 99% chance you will be coding in your constructors. Not every class, as I told you, some classes like persistence classes where you get the database connectivity, etc. Not all the classes. Some classes you are going to code certain thing in your constructor.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. So we'll be starting at 9:20. Okay, so we'll start the packages and access modifiers. Okay, right. So what is mean by now? These are two topics actually. The first topic is Java packages. Second topic is access modifiers. Now remember, when we are doing the codings, you will see sometimes we are using public, right? Public, and sometimes I'm not using anything like that. I'm just writing the method, right? Here you can see. Sometimes actually I forget. Now here I just make it protected. Okay. Also, just give me 1 minute. right? So those are called access modifiers. Okay, access modifiers. Right. So before moving to access modifiers, we are going to discuss about what is known as packages. Right. For example, when we were doing some initial coding, say something like control structures. We had to read some data from the user, remember? Right, so this one is not reading anything. Right, so here you can see that if you are using this random class, we have to import it, right? When you are doing this system, because it is commented here, if you are going to read some data from the user, you have to create object of a scanner. Now, I told you that at that time, you will better understand what is the scanner object. Remember, I told you that when we do the object-oriented programming. Now, you can see that, of course, this is commented in this case. We are creating a scan object and calling the next in behavior. Right? So, okay. So we are not doing any, now this is where the constructor is called. Constructor of the scan object is called, and we are just calling one behavior to get the data read. Now it is going to do the reading. Now that one we don't have to do, right? So then all of a sudden the data is there, but we are not doing any destruction or whatever, right? So that is why I told you usually we don't have to do it. Now when this method is over, this random object is also garbage collected. Okay, so this, of course, if it is not commented, this scan object is also garbage collected, and of course, this is also, if it is object, this will also be garbage collected. And the other thing is, now if you look at so let's create a say test. Say I'm creating a scan object. You have to send the system in. Now I'm not going to give you any out. It's out. I'm just reading. Say int x equal scan objects. I'm calling the next int behavior. Now, if you now this is what happens now, because anyway in semester 3 you have to understand this again at very great depth. Now I have now this is assume that this is my test class. Now of course test class you don't have to create object. That is my starting point of the execution. Now it has created a scan object when this line is executed. If there are any instance variables for scan object, those memories now allocated after this line is executed. Okay, so then still we are executing in this class, this main method. Now it is calling the, now object is created, now it is calling the next int behavior, next int, because we need to read the data from the console. Then what happens? Then of course we can continue with our tasks. Okay, whatever we want, say I can read another or data using the same object. Now you are not, now say this is my first number. Now you are going to, now if you have properly understood the concept, now you are going to understand this code from A to Z. Okay, say SOUT enter first number. What we need is someone who can understand what is doing, what you are doing, not just doing for the sake of doing. Because when we write a program, we know why we write this line, that line. So that is what we need, not someone who doing blindly without knowing what you are doing. So that is my first number. Say I want to get my second number also. Second number. Say let's call it 5. Now this is a very simple program. Now I'm adding to those two numbers. Say int x, and I'm printing. Is it okay? So this is very simple program, right? So if I run it, I'm still in the object oriented. Okay. Why there's error? Cannot find. So that may be capital is it there. Simple is it. Okay, it's a simple capital problem. Right now, if you run it, so it is going to ask me the first number. I will say 5. Next number, I will say 6. Now it is 11. Now the program is over. Now all the objects are now candidate for garbage collector. Right? I can't say now it's garbage collected, but next time the garbage collector runs, now this scan object will be garbage collector. Okay, right. So now look at what happens when you are creating the object. So scan, if you go to the scanner class, right. So this is a scanner class, this construct actually. So this must be your scanner class. You can see how complicated this is. This is something that the Java people who are developing the Java has written. So this is the type of complexity. Now this is humans have written this class. So ini මේක තේරුම් ගන්න බැරි කමක් නැහැ. හරි. අතර මේ code එක අපිට හොඳට analyze කරාම, so if you got a job in the Oracle, your task is implementing some changes to the next JDK. Now unless you understand this code, how do you change it? Right? How do you change it? And now you can see this is the reality. This is the reality. Of course, I am not saying that every software developer has to face this kind of a complexity. Right? No, but it's people, they are doing these kind of things as, right? It's not superhumans. I'm just looking for the class declaration. Now you can see class is a scanner. Right? Now you can see it's a final class. Now remember we discussed last time. So that means no one can subclass the scanner class, because it's a final class, and that scanner class has implements the iterator interface, right? And also it has implemented the closable interface. Now those are interfaces, and closable interface has extended the auto closable interface. You can see. So auto closable, that's it. The auto closable may be having some methods. Yes, it has the close method. Right? Then the closable interface, it has again the close method. So pretty much the same method. I don't know why they are having the same method. There must be some reason. Okay, there must be some reason why they have redeclared the close method again. Yes, here this one throws exception. Now our next subject is exception handling, but we are not going to do it. We are going to do it a little bit later. Right? Now you can see, if you look at your syllabus, after the packages, the next topic is exception handling. Now you can see this one is throwing exception, but this one is throwing IO exception. That is why they have redefined it. Okay, so that still you can't understand because we haven't done the exception handling. But at the end, I promise you that you will be able to, if you have properly followed this course, you will be able to understand each and every code. So I have no fear about this code. I have no fear. Of course, I know that it's complicated, but as an engineer, I must be able to handle it. ඔගොල්ලෝ දන්නවද මේ ඔයගොල්ලෝ YouTube වලේ හරියට මේ දවස්වල නැව් වල යන කට්ටිය නේද? ඒවා ඉන්න first engineer, second engineer, electrical engineer, right? So now your ship is, now you are traveling from say Singapore to Brazil. Now this is Africa, this is Brazil. Now somewhere all of a sudden there's an engine problem. Right? Engine problem. The now ship is stopped there. Now, do you think that the engineers are getting the heart attacks? No. Of course, if you are that engineer, yes, you will get a heart attack now. What to do? Of course, you are getting high salaries, right? 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs salary per month. But when these things happens, why you are getting that salary? Because now you have to fix it, right? So ship is a big thing, right? Sometimes it can be 200 meters long, right? Engine rooms and everything is there. Now you have to troubleshoot. You have to. Now that is why not just one person. They have a team. First engineer, second engineer, third engineer, right? Other technical people. Because it's a complicated task. If it is just one engineer here, of course he is also going to get the heart attack now, because he is alone. So that is why they have set of people. Right? Set of people. Now they can using their experience, their knowledge, right? Because one person will see something, another person will say no, that there's these possibilities also possible, which the other person never thought. So then they will discuss it and they will identify the problem and they will fix it. Of course, those engineers, they are not designing things. They are just why they need engineers, not the technicians, because it's too complicated for a normal technical person. So that is why we have the first engineer, second engineers, right? So same, right? So that is why, of course, for you, building a 50-story building can be really complicated, but for the civil engineers, they know how to tackle that. They know how to tackle that. They know how to tackle the complexity of Victoria Dam. They know how to tackle the complexity of diesel power plant, right? Because they are trained to do that and they have the potential, and that is why we take the best people in the mathematical streams to go into those professions, right? Because they can handle it and they must handle it. Okay, right? Yes, software development is also like that, right? But once you know those things, you don't have to worry, right? You don't have to worry. You can handle it, right? You can handle it. Okay, so now you can see that these concepts are everywhere, right? These concepts are everywhere. Now, for example, now what happens here is, now this is your class. This is your class. Then you are creating a scan object. Scan object. Scan object. You are calling this is you create it. Now only you are calling the next in behavior. Next in behavior. Now it is going to do that task by reading whatever the end user has entered. Now you got the result. So that is why you are coming here. Right. So this method is going to wait until the user types something and hit the enter. The moment the user enter, it is going to read it, and because it's this next in method is going to be called. So this next int method has it just return the next int in the default radix. Now you have to check what is this one. That is this method in the scanner. And you can see it is doing some checks and it is setting something. It is clearing the cache, right? And it is converting it into integer, because you are expecting integer, right? So therefore it is converting whatever the data. They read it as a string, right? Read it as a string, then they convert that string into the integer. If it is not a valid integer, it is going to handle this exception, right? So it is throwing exception. For example, if I put up a breakpoint here, okay, now look at what I'm going to do, okay? If it is an invalid number, this method is going to raise an exception, okay? Now it will, most probably it will come here, okay? Now let's see. Let's run debug this again. Now I'm going to debug because I know that exception will be, the control will go there because I know the object-oriented programming. Okay, now I'm going to now earlier it gave me no error because I enter valid numbers. But if I enter something like AB, right? Say AB. Now I'm pretty sure the control will go to that breakpoint. Okay, so why not go to that breakpoint? Maybe it is handled somewhere else. So I can double check that. So this one, okay, so this method is, you can see this method is called so there's no number format exception. Why is right? So let's double check. Let's put up a debug point here and see whether why it is not coming to this catch. Okay, so let's do it again now. Debug. Now now it's already here. I don't know why it's already here. Still I didn't enter any number. Okay, so anyway, so let's say go to the next line. I think I accidentally stopped it. Okay, so let's debug it again. Debug, stop and return. Right, now let's do it again. I think the debug is not working at the JDK level. Okay, so let's put up somewhere here also and do the debug again. Okay, so let's say go to the next breakpoint. So this is go to the resume the program. Okay, for some reason debugging is not working in my machine at this level. I think the code is not properly, the Java file is not synced. Okay, so otherwise definitely it should go here, or maybe somewhere in this method it must raise the exception, right? It must raise the exception and go to the catch. Okay, catch, and it must throw this exception, and I don't know why it is not going there. That is an interesting point. I want to double check. Anyway, let's not do the debugging. Let's just run it again. And for example, let's say 5. Let's say invalid one. Now you can see this is successfully done. This is going to give you the error and stop it. Now if you go there, you can see this the exception happened in this line. Of course, this one was successfully done. Exception occurred at the line 11. Then scan a class, and that is this line, correct, right? Because that is the next line. Then in that method at this line, right? So this is where the exception is thrown. So that means you have to go to the integer pattern, I think. You can see here, yes, the next method. So this is where the exception went, because it is else and it goes for throw 4, and you can go for the next one, and this particular exception was raised, right? So that is the exception that was thrown from the scanner class. So that is why it stopped, because it's an invalid input. Okay, so likewise, I don't know why the debugging was not happening. Maybe my source file is not synchronized properly. So similarly, you should be able to go through this, and of course you are not supposed to go into that and understand each and every code. So that is what is known as abstraction, right? So that complexity is abstracted into this scanner class. So therefore, without knowing how the scanner class is implemented, I can just use it, right? I can just use it according to their documentation. So it will say, as long as you get a valid integer input this method will give you. Okay. If the input is wrong, not a valid input, the documentation will say you will be getting this particular exception, right? For example, you can see these are the exceptions: input mismatch exception, no such element exception, illegal state exception. So those exceptions can be there, right? So what I got at this point is input mismatch exception. You can see one of the exceptions. So then someone will ask, how do you know that these exceptions are fired? So that is why we want to learn the exception handling topic. Otherwise, you don't know. By looking at this method, how do you know that these exceptions are fired? Of course, that you have to go to the next level and see. Okay. Now, here, of course, one of the exception is fired. Now you can see one of the exceptions. Still, other exception may be in other methods. Those are fired. Okay. So likewise, we can always track. Okay. Right. So now, since we have done object-oriented programming, and also after doing the packages, access controllers, then the nested classes, etc., you will gradually understand it. Okay, so another one, for example, what is the meaning of this out? Because this is a strange thing, right? System out println. Of course, system is a class. Right? System is a class. System is a class. It's again, you can see it's a final class. Now, then what is this out? What is this out? You can see out is a class variable. You can see out is a class variable. Since it's a class variable, I can use the class name and access it. So that is why we are saying system.out. Just like, remember account.interest rate? Remember we did that at the basic coding. Right? So if you go to the basics, here you have, sorry, account class. Now here we have a static variable interest rate that I can access as account.interest rate. Where is that? Of course, we didn't access like that code. I think we access it. We make it encapsulated.
Yeah.
For better.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So initially we access it like that, right? We were able to access it account.interest rate, but later we make it better by making it private, and we came up with two behaviors, right? So same thing. So this is, you can see that out is a static variable. So therefore, yes, we can say system.out. Then someone will ask, what is println? Println is a behavior in this out. Out is a variable, but its data, it's of the print stream. That means print stream class must be having a behavior or method called system out. Println. Okay. So you see whether we have a method called println and those things. So those are, now you can see these are constructors. So now how many constructors are there? Another, the private constructor. And so this is another constructor. Another constructor. Another constructor. Another constructor. Right? So many constructors are there for different reasons, right? If there is no need, they will never write this code. Constructor, because they have so many things to do, useful things to do, rather than just writing constructors without reason. So those are all constructors. Now we should be able to see the println method somewhere, or maybe it can be from the superclass. Right method is there. Write ln is there, new line is there. Now count the print method. Remember we use the print method. This is another print method with int, another print for float, overloaded method. You can see this is overloading. Same method, different signature. Now this is a print ln. That means you can remember we used to call the print ln without parameters. Just to go into the next line. So that means because there's a valid println overloaded version. Right? I think we did that heavily when it comes to control structures. Right? So why we can write like this? Println without parameters. Why? Because if it is expecting a parameter, you have to send it. So therefore, these are two overloaded methods of the same method, but overloaded. Overloaded means two different signatures. Yes, now this is, it's not expecting any thing, but any parameter. But this one, there's one overloaded version for Boolean, one for char, right? So one for int. So that is how they have written it. And of course, this is developing the Java language itself, right? So therefore, your software development is not going to be as complex as this, right? Yes, that is not going. So our software development is going to be in this level of complexity, right? This level of complexity, not that level of complexity. Okay. So at different levels, different engineers work at different areas, different levels of abstraction. Right, so let's get back to our topic because we are keep delaying our topic now. Right, but I am explaining these things because these are very important to have that mindset with you. Right, well, make mindset on, right? So that serious mindset that we expect from professionals like accountants, engineers, doctors, businessmen. So they are professionals. හරි ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන ඊට වැඩිය ඩිසිප්ලින් ඊට වැඩිය කොම්ප්ලිකේටඩ් දේවල් කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා නේද හරි අපි ડોක්ටර් කෙනෙක්ගෙන් බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන බයිපාස් එකක් කරයි හරි මොලේ සර්ජරියක් කරයි අර මොලේ ඇතුලේ තියෙන ගෙඩියත් ඒ මිනිස්සු වට කොහොම හරි අයින් කරලා ගොඩ දාන්න බලනවා නේද හරි බකුගොඩු බද්ද කිරීමක් කරයි නේද ඒ තියවල ලේසිදද බකුගොඩු බද්ද කරනවා කියන්නේ කොච්චර සියුම් දෙයක්ද සෝ ඒකට පුරුදු කරන්න ඒගොල්ලන්ට ඒකට අර ඒගොල්ලන් අපි ගන්න ෆිසික්ස් වගේ සබ්ජෙක්ට් එකට කෙමිස්ට්‍රි වගේ සබ්ජෙක්ට් එකට ලකුණු 80ක් 90කට යාට යන්න පුළුවන්. ඒ ලෙවල් එකේ යාට පුළුවන් මේක දරා ගන්න. එච්චර කමිට්මන්ට්ස් තියෙනවාද කියලා බලන්න. Right. So first we are going to discuss Java packages, then we will be discussing the access modifiers. Okay. Right. So there are two reasons why we need concept called packages. The reason number one is when we have a real world software, it will be, if it is object oriented especially, we will be having sometimes hundreds of classes, definitely, right? More than 100, even a very simple project which goes for about say 3-4 months with about 4-5 engineers, definitely you are going to have at least 200-300 classes. So, and of course different functionalities. Say it's something you are developing for a supermarket or something, the order functionality, payment functionality, utility functionalities, okay, inventory functionality. So you don't want all the functionalities in just one folder, right? So now you can see that even me, I have not written all your codes in one place, right? You can see. So some codes are in the this particular folder, another set of codes are in another folder. So why? Then it is easy. Otherwise, all the codes in just one folder, you have now say 200 odd classes in one place. Okay, one place. So therefore, when you have it in properly subdivided into folders, etc., then it's easier to manage. So that is number one reason why we need package. So package, you can think of something like a folder. Okay, so when you are having those different classes in different packages or different folders, now it's very easy to manage it, right? Because I know that payment related things are in the payment package or payment folder. order related things are in the order folder or the order package, right? So the email utility related to sending email is in that particular package, right? So that is very easy for us to, because it's all about organizing things, managing things, handling the complexities, right? So when you do those things, you will be coming to a stage where you will feel like now we should be able to manage it. Though it is complex, still we can manage it because we are doing it in a very systematic way. Okay. So therefore, packages are very important to arrange your code in a nicely structured hierarchical manner. Not only folder, we are going for subfolders as well. So that is why we have sub packages. Okay. Maybe payment. There are two types of payment: the card payment and the cash payment. So the card payment related things, I will put it into the sub package called card payment. Right. So the payment related things are in the payment, but payment package has sub packages. Maybe that sub package has another sub package. So that is why when we import this util scanner class, it is in a package called Java. Inside that sub package called util, inside that sub package called scanner. Right. So for example, Java util class package has another sub package called IO, where the input output, sorry, not the IO, that is a different package. There's another package called Java IO, java.io. That is where you have your files and other related things. But if you take something like this, I think it is also using, now if you go for, now this is in the this particular package. Which package? Java util package. But if you go to this input stream, right, it is definitely in a different package. Now if you look at this package, it is in the Java IO package. Now you can see different functionalities are in different packages, right? So the print stream is in the Java input output package, whereas the scanner is in the Java util package. So likewise, when you have the concept of package, we can properly organize our code in nicely hierarchical folder structure. So that is the usage number one. Usage number two is this concept of packages provide the basis for access handling, access modifiers. Now that is our second topic. So that is why we first have to learn Java packages and access modifiers, because access modifiers has the meaning of access modifier has something to do with the packages as well. Okay, so but we will be discussing access modifiers separately, right? So what are the two usages? Help you organize your code, provide basis for access modifiers. So those are the two usages of Java or any language, the concept of package. Okay. Right. So when it comes to naming packages, we always use as a convention, not a rule, all simple, right? All simple. And also we go for hierarchical manner, right? For example, now here you can see even Java has followed the convention. Therefore, so where is that? I think I closed that code. Right. Java, all simple, util, all simple. Right? So that is how you name it as a convention. We all go for all simple. Okay, all simple. Something like this. Okay. And also, usually when naming packages, people like to use their domain name as the starting level of the package or the root package. So, okay, for example, say our domain name is Aurora CS. So I can start our package as Aurora CS dot say payment, Aurora CS dot order. That is a best practice. Okay, there's no rule saying your package root folder must be your domain name, but usually we go for that kind of a thing because there's a reason for that also. When it comes to developing software, sometimes you have to use third-party components. So then if two people have used the same class name, right? So you also have the class name called ABC. Your third-party library also having a class called ABC. Now you are in trouble. So therefore, it's always good to code in a package. Now, as long as they are in a different package, you don't have to worry. You can use that ABC class as well as your ABC class, because you have to refer to you have to refer to it using the package as well. So then say XYZ package ABC class is different from PQR package ABC class. You can call create objects of both separately. Okay, so therefore usually people prefer to have your domain name, then because there can be a unfortunate situation, the class is also the same, package is also the same. Now again you can't differentiate because both are the same. Say ABC package PQ class. Here also if happens in another library, now again there's ambiguity. So that is why usually when you name packages, some organizations, most organizations want to start with their domain name, because your domain name is something yours, right? Because no one else can take that domain name. So therefore there's a very little, if ABC is my domain name, there's a very little chance that you will be using the ABC as a package, because that is not your domain name, right? So that is again to prevent or minimize possible conflicts of same package names. Okay, but it is not a rule. It's not a rule, right? So then we can create our own packages as well as Java. Your JDK also has some packages. Okay, because every code must be in a package. It's not a rule, but when it comes to now so far we have never used packages so far. We just write our code right here and there. Okay, so we are not using package. But when it comes to commercial software development, we always use packages. That usually we never write a code without a package, because these classes will be reused by another library, or we will be reusing a different library. So then we want to make sure that those conflicts are no longer there. So therefore, it's a best practice. Always go for packages. Okay, always. Don't write code outside packages. Okay. Right. So when it comes to Java language itself, it has some built-in packages. Right. It has some built-in packages. For example, we are heavily using this class called system. Sometimes we are using the class called string. Right. Now all those classes are in a package called java.lang. Now if you go to, I'm just click on the control and click on this. Now if you look at the package here, it's java.lang, right? So string is in the java.lang. If you take something like system, that is also java.lang, right? So most of the classes that you use frequently are in a package called java.lang. So there's a special rule for java.lang package, because that is the default package, or that is the main package in JDK. So therefore, if you are using a class or interface, or if you are referring to anything in that package, you can just use it. You can just use it, or you can just refer to it. Okay. But if it is in any other package other than java.lang, that means any other package created by Java people, or packages that you create, because you can't create your java.lang package. Java.lang is something that Java people have defined. So therefore, any Java class which is not in the java.lang, or any class that you have created in your package, you can't just use it. You can't just use it. So if you are using those classes or interfaces in a different package than java.lang, first you have to import that package and use it. Right? So that is why now your system is in java.lang. Therefore, you can, without import, you can use it. Okay. Your string is in the java.lang. So therefore, you can use it without importing. But if you take something like So where was that class I just created? Test the. Yeah, but if you take something like scanner, scanner is not in the java.lang package. If you go up, you will see that it is in the java.util package, right? So if you are referring to a class or interface which is not in the java.lang, you can't just use it. You have to import and use it, right? So that is why if you are referring to the a class which is not in the java.lang package, you have to import it. And remember, we found that it is in java.util. So you have to say that import your package name. So the package name is, for example, scan class. The package name is java.util. So therefore, you have to say import java.util then your class name. So this is your package name. Java.util is your package name. And scanner is the class name. You have to import like this. Okay. If you don't import, you can't use it because it is not in the Java lang. If you delete it, now you are getting compile errors. You can see errors, right? So when you import again, either you can import the specific class or you can import everything in that package like this. Now you can see still it's work. Now Java util package, there are so many classes, but you import everything. So star means everything, right? So then anything in that package, you can directly refer to it. You can directly refer to it. Right? Now you can see Java util star is working, Java util scanner is also working. Okay. Then someone will ask, is it a must to use or import it? The answer is yes, usually you import and use it. Right? If it is not in java.lang. But there's another option that is without importing. Say if you don't want to import this, you can still do it, but what you have to do is you have to use the full qualified class name. So you have to say that not scanner, you have to say Java util scanner. Here also Java util scanner. So then it's working. Okay, so if you are now you have two options. If you are referring to a class which is not in the java.lang, you have two options. One thing is you import individual or entire package and use it. Then you don't have to write like Java util scan. Second option is you don't import it, but whenever you refer to that object class, you give the full class Java util scan. Those are the two options, but that you have to do only if it is not in the java.lang, because java.lang is available to you. Okay, so that is what is meant by the package. Okay, right. So I'm going to delete this code. Right. Okay, so the packages, it's better to understand in command line environment. Okay, command line environment. So therefore, now I'm going back to the command line environment. I'm going to create a folder called 14 packages. Okay, 14 packages. Access modifiers will take as 16. Okay. Right. Now I am going to create a package. Right. So remember last other cases I just create classes here. Now I'm going to say something like this. Say I am going to create a package means basically folder. Okay. So I will say order. So that is my package. Okay. And this is my root folder, in this case 14 package. Okay. So I will take a command prompt. Say D, CD to that folder. That is my root folder. Okay. If you create a class here, you don't have to give it a package. But if you create a class somewhere here, let's call it order. So the class. Order.java. Right now it is in a subfolder, so therefore now I have to say the package. This is how you specify it. You have to say package. Right. So in our case, our folder is just order. So the package is order. Okay, so that is how you tell it. Package is order. Now you can create your class because I just call the package also order. In my case, the package is also order, class is also order. So that is not necessarily the same. You can have package called util, class called scanner. Okay. Right. Now I'm going to create the class order, O capital, and some class. Now let's see how to compile this. Now your class is in a folder called order. Right? Folder called order. So therefore, this is how you compile it. Java C order dot order slash, that is your class name, folder name, and then the class name. Order dot Java. Of course, here you can use simple O because my folder is simple O, something like this. Okay, so I think my file name has issue, but it does say class names order Java OR. I have typing issue, not Java or Java. Now you can see there's no error. So I managed to compile it, but I am in the root folder. Therefore, when you're Java C or when you compile, you have to give the path as well with reference to this folder because this is your current folder, 14 package. So order is a subfolder. So therefore, you have to say Java C, your folder names, and if you have the next folder, you have to say slash blah blah blah. Finally, your class name. So then it is going to be compiled. Now let's see whether it's a class file. You can see class is available. Right? Class is available. Okay. So that is how you work with the package. Right? If you are in a subfolder, you must have the package statement. And when you're compiling, you have to compile it from the root level. But at the same time, while you are in the root level, you have to give the folders, subfolders, and the class to compile. Okay. Right. I hope you got it. So let's create another package. Let's call it payment. Say I will call this payment class .java. So now I have to say package is what? Payment. I'm just copy pasting. Let's say the code is also payment. Now I can compile this one also because nothing is there. Payment, P-A-Y-M-E-N-T. What's wrong? Maybe this capital P is wrong. Java C.
Spelling is mistake.
Yeah,
PAY.
yeah. M and N is there's a spelling mistake. Thank you. Pay MENT. Still issue. Why is that? PAY. Still there's a compile spelling mistake. Yeah. PAYMENT. Now I hope payment. Okay. Right. Now it should compile. Now it is compiled. Okay. So you have to compile it from your root folder, but you have to, after Java C, you have to give the subfolders and the file name. Okay. That is how you compile a class or set of interfaces, classes in a package. Like package. So the next thing is how to use this. And of course, if you want, you can go for hierarchy. Say under that, if you want, you can go for order, say order related util class, utility class. So you can just call it util. Then of course, we can have another class here. I will call it order util. .java. Say now it is in the sub package. What is that sub package? Order package dot util package. So that is the package because it's under the order folder. My order util class is in the util folder, subfolder. And of course, here you have to go for the class name because I want same thing. Order util. Order util. Let's double check. ORDER-UTIL. Let's make this more simple. Java C. So it's in a subfolder, right? That is issue. Order. Then in the subfolder called util. Then you have the order util Java. Now it is compiled. Right? Now, if you are using these classes, say here, I have a test class. Of course, now you don't have to write the package. Why? It is the root package, root folder. Because my 14 package is a root folder. If you are in the root folder, you don't have to write the package. So you can just say class. Okay. I should be able to compile this without any issue. Java C test.java. Right now you know what is mean by package. Now I can create. Usually I can refer to from dog class. Sorry, vet class. I can refer to dogs, etc. But here now I'm in trouble because here no class is here in the root folder. So therefore I can't create order or whatever here. Say let's create a main method. Public static void main right. Now can I create an object of order, say, or payment? Let's see whether it's possible. Now this is in the default package, but I'm referring to a class in order package. So this is not going to work. Now you can see it says that I don't know what is order, because order is not in your package. If you are referring to something in other packages, you have to import. You have two options. One option is you have to refer to the full path as well. For example, it must be order package order class. So that is one way, right? One way. It's going to work now. Let's compile. Okay, why is that? Outside package. Order is not public in order, cannot be accessed. So that is a different thing. Okay, that is a different thing. So in my case, I forget to make it public. That is the issue. Okay, I will, for the time being, I will make it public. Anyway, access modifiers we are going to discuss later. Right now, I have to recompile the order class. Right now, I should be able to test class. Okay. Right now, no errors. So that means if you import it, for what happens the code now. Right, code is the test class. Okay. Now you are referring to full qualified path. So as long as you refer to your classes, interfaces, including the package now. So this is the package name, class name, package name, class name. Then you are okay. Right. So if you are using a third-party class to create objects, one option is don't just use your class name. That is what we used to do, like animal, dog, etc. But now if it is in a different package, then your package, you have to refer to it as a package name dot your class name. Okay, so that is option 1. Right, so that is option 1. Option 2 is you can import and use it. Right. For example, now we have order util. Sorry, we have payment. Payment. So therefore, let's try to create a payment also. Payment P1 equal new payment. Of course, this is not going to work because payment is in a different folder, different package. So therefore, I'm going to get errors now. You can see it says I don't know what is payment is. So what is one option? Go for a package, full qualified name. So that is payment package, payment class. Now it should be able to compile again. Okay, so why? Again, the public issue there. Public again, no, na? ඒක public කරන්න ඕන කියලා මම කියන්න පස්සේ ඊළඟ දවසේ access modifiers කරන්න. Now I want to compile the payment first. This is how you compile. Okay, but anyway, still now I change the package. I change the package. Now I'm going to compile my test class, which is not in a package anyway. Why is that? PAY P capital වෙනවනේ. මොකද්ද?
payments කියලා දෙන්න අර object එකේ name.
Object එක මම payments කියලාද?
නෑ සර් test class එකේ වැරදියටද?
කොතනද? ඕනේ. Payment, right? Yeah, thank you. Right, now it should be okay. Right. So in both the cases, what we did, we referred to as full qualified name. Full qualified name. Now assume that I have order util also. So there is order util. Order util. So I want to make it public because otherwise I am going to get another error. I am going to first compile this order util. Now remember, where is it? Under order, then there's a package called util. There you have the order util Java. So you can compile. Okay. Now you have to write the correct path. Order util class name. Okay. Now let's try to access that one also from the test class. How to do that? So I have to say order dot util dot order util. Order util O capital U capital I have used. So then here also full qualified. So this is going to work. If you go for full qualification, you are good to go. Let's compile it again now. No error. I managed to compile my sorry, not order util. I want to compile my test class. Why is that? Order dot util dot order util O1 equal new order dot util dot order util. Okay. What's wrong with the code? Order dot util dot order util. What is this? There's nothing called this. Okay. Order util. Right. So I made a mistake previously. Now it should work. Okay. Why is that? Already defined. Yes, O1 is already defined. I can't have the same one. Let's say O1 util or UT. Right, done. So one way of referring to classes or interfaces in not from your package, you can refer to the full path or the package and the class name. That is approach number one. Approach number two is, if you want, you can import and use it. Say, payment I am going to use like this. Payment I am going to use like this. But order I am going to do separately. Now this is, let's use this way to demonstrate both. Okay. Now here, rather than you write in this full, what you can do is you can import. What is the package? Order.order. Okay. And now here also you don't have to say order.order. You can just refer to order. So of course here it must be order. Right. right? So that is one way of doing that. Now you don't have to full qualify it, because since you have import, it knows what are the classes in the order package. So therefore, now I can be able to compile it again, right? So here we are referring full qualified, but easier thing is you import and just use your class name, because it knows, it will look at, when you say order, it will see whether there's a built-in class called order. Is there a class called order in your package or whatever? Okay, right? So that is what you are supposed to do. You can do something, that is, or you can just say order.order, or you can say order.star. That means everything in that package. Everything in that package, not sub packages, everything in that order package. Now this one is also going to work, because I imported the entire thing. Best practice is not to import everything unless you need lot of classes in that package in your application. If you just need 1 or 2 class, you better, rather than going for star, you can just say which class, because it's very specific. Okay, right. Other thing is, when you import, it doesn't mean that it import the it doesn't mean that it imports the sub packages. No, right? No sub packages. So therefore, if you want the order, create order util object, now this is not going to work, because this is the upper folder, right? So I'm going to get compile errors again now. Right? So it says I don't know what is order util, because you have imported only order package. So when you import a package, only that package is imported. Don't think that the sub packages are imported. No, sub package, if you want, you have to import it separately. Something like this. And now you can refer to order util also as a normal way without full qualification. Or you can say order.util.star also. But better to just import whatever you want. Right? It must not give you any. Now you can see there are, if your class is not in the default folder, you always have to declare your go for the package statement and say that I am in this particular package, something like this. And if someone is referring to the items in the package, either you have to go for full qualified path, or you have to import individual class or interface or entire class or interface in that particular package. But again you have to do that. Okay, right? So that's it about packages, right? So the points you have to remember is, if your file is not in the root folder, you must go for package statements compatible with your folders and subfolders. And if you are referring to anything, any class or interface outside your area package, you have to import it and use it, or you can go for full qualification. If you import, you can import the specific item, or you can just say everything in that package. Okay, but if you just need one object, always go for specific thing rather than star, because it's much more convenient for the users. But of course, if you feel like I am importing 20-30 classes, you better not to go for that also. Okay, right? So now we are done with the packages. So next time we are going to discuss access modifiers, right? So the access modifiers utilize this concept of packages. So therefore packages has a lot of meanings. So one of the use of packages, one of the use of packages the use of access modifiers to control the accessibility, right? So that we are going to discuss next time. It is not a big topic, but I don't want to give everything at the same time. So I just explain you the concept of package only, right? Concept of package. So if it is not in the root folder, you must have the package statement compatible with your folder hierarchy. And also if you are referring to anything other than your package, either you have to import it and use it, or you have to go for full qualified method, full qualified class name. Okay, right. So that's it. So next time we will be discussing the access modifiers. Then definitely we are going for the UI development, which is really interesting as well as really challenging, because at very fresh level I want you to work on use of object orientation. So therefore most probably in the Thursday class also we will be discussing object orientation, sorry, programming, because I want to before it's too long, I want to make you start using some object oriented concepts. Okay, but this is not object oriented, this is just a concept called package. Okay, right. So we stop at this point. Right. Thank you. Yes, any question? Sorry.
Yeah, nowadays the thing is in the scanner part, Java
Yes.
we are using scanner. No? So in that one, sir, you are using that in the integer x is equal to that the next in like that the coding you are using that one, sir. That one earlier today.
Sorry.
Today's class earlier we discussed that one, that x and y.
Sorry, your voice is not clear. It's breaking up.
Yeah. So the thing is, at the first of our class today we discussed that integer x, that we utilized about the scanners Java.
Okay.
In that
Yes.
one you have written that some codes. So what about that codes which were predefined, or else we have to write that one?
Okay. Just wait. I just want to get the code first.
Okay.
Say one of the control statements we use there. Right. So this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
In that.
Okay. So then you can easily explain it. Right. Yes, we are using the scanner and we import and use here. Okay.
Yes, sir. We are writing that after that the system.print, sir, we are writing integer x is equal to sc.text. Int is there, no? Is that code is
sorry. I'm again lost. Sorry. I have created the scan object. So then you have to explain it slowly. Then we are calling the next int method. Okay.
Yes. That point, sir, which is the predefined one, or else we have to do that coding.
No. So this is something the scanner class has been created by Java people. It is part of your JDK software. Yeah, they have implemented the next method. We just call it.
So this is a predefined one, no, sir?
Yeah, it's a predefined one. It's a predefined one. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
So when we are developing a software, some of the methods and classes we have to develop. At the same time, we can use whatever the classes and their expose attributes and behaviors of the predefined classes. Okay, that is how it works. Okay, right. So any other questions, anyone? Okay, so all the questions next time also you can ask, because now we are coming to the end of your syllabus, right? After sometimes your course will be over, semester 1 will be over, because now already we are doing some past papers for other subjects like the computer systems, information systems, maths, etc. So the programming also is going to be over after some time. So before it's over, you have to clarify all those problems. I know that you may not have a lot of issues when it comes to operators, control structures, even methods. But this is where you are going to have that small doubts which you want to clarify. Okay, right. So let's stop at this point. Right. Oh, thank you.